Hi, everyone. Welcome back to a new episode of Emerging Brands Podcast with Kelly Bennett. I have a very special guest. I was able to moderate a panel at New York Now, and today's guest was on that panel, and they did such an incredible job. And I totally fangirled that they were even on the panel that I was moderating. And you saying, I'll just talk to you right now, but you saying yes to coming on my podcast, totally fangirled again. So Lana Van Brunt, thank you so much for being here.
Thank you for having me.
You're so welcome. Your brand, you're the co-founder of Sackville, and I've been following your brand for a while. I truly love what you've been doing in your industry. You've been featured in Vogue, Refinery 29, GQ, Nylon, have some really cool brand partnerships with Playboy. I saw one with Carrots recently, and I just seriously love your brand and how you approached an industry that really needed disruption, especially as female founders. So before I fan out girl too much, can you give us a little backstory of your brand?
Yeah, absolutely. First of all, thank you.
You're so welcome.
That's so kind. I can't hear it enough.
Yes.
My co-founder Haley Deneen, we started it in early 2018. And again, painting that picture in the world of cannabis. So we really started forming the concept of the company 2017, to officially launch the beginning of 2018. And like the world of cannabis was not what it is now. It has rapidly changed, and Vogue and Refinery 29 and those types of outlets were not writing about weed. It was something that was still very much still had a lot of stigma, and I think very much so associated with women. So for us, it was something that we saw very clearly that this felt like a very short-term time frame in cannabis for a very large future state opportunity, where there was a state of being where cannabis would be considered still, this movement from illicit into the regular markets, and how that was being treated. And, no one really considering what the experience of consuming cannabis, how people would be designing their homes, styling their lifestyles, and taking cannabis into modern society, like kind of in the same note as alcohol. So obviously considering a prohibition, like we were not there for that, but like, you're styling your home, your dinner parties, you're buying beautiful decanters, you want things that make you feel good while you're having a glass of wine, or, a particular type of cocktail has a really beautiful glass that goes along with it, or you want these pieces that make you feel elevated and kind of mature in the experience, or fun, or, can express all these different versions of your own personality in the way that you are consuming. And so that to us was not being considered at all. So we wanted to redesign the experience of cannabis and give people an opportunity to express themselves and design their homes, their lifestyle, the same way that they were doing with alcohol, or to the their clothes and the way they're styling their homes and all of that, to have not only bring it into the modern world and help decrease the stigma around it, but also knowing what we believe is a very short-term time frame of cannabis being this like place where you're getting your grinder at the dispensary or these places, and into the future where you'll be shopping for these goods the same way as you're shopping for your alcohol accessories in beautiful home stores and beautiful accessory spaces, and being able to curate a very, very personalized experience.
I love that so much. And something that I really am struck with your brand is how beautiful your products are and accessories, and how beautifully designed, and the color palettes all have a different vibe and style. And when you're saying, what really just struck me in what you were just saying is how people are bringing it into their homes. And I could totally see now why you have a grinder that looks the way that it does, and the color palettes, is that people are really now having more of these lifestyle products on display. It's not like
Yeah.
something hidden in a shoebox under your bed,
Yeah,
like back in the day, right? And so I think
totally.
that is a really cool point on how you have it in parallel to when you're having cocktail parties or have a beautiful decanter and different glasses for drinking alcohol. You saw the opportunity for cannabis.
Yeah.
So take me back. So it was 2018, these publications and just the mainstream consumer wasn't necessarily thinking in this way as far as making more elevated cannabis lifestyle products. So how were those early years? And 2018 actually wasn't that long ago.
No,
Um how
it's
did
not.
you
Like a
start and like to
lifetime, but
get
it's not.
yeah, no,
Yeah.
totally. And I think that's so true as like a founder. It's like 1 year we
Yeah.
live like 10 lives.
Yeah.
Um how like what were the challenges when you were first starting and then to where you are now?
I mean, it's interesting because, again, I think that if we chat in 6 months, if we chat in a year, if it, all of these answers will most likely be different, because I do
Right.
think as a founder, you are always facing something unique. Like the whole point is that you haven't done it before. And especially in this, it's a new industry, it's a completely new category. We also have the only product design and production agency that caters to cannabis. So it's another completely new space that you're trying to bring up. So there's a lot of firsts and there's a lot of challenges that go with that. So I say that all being that there's a lot of things that I think every stage of growth brings. But at the beginning, we right off the bat, like within the first year, we actually did a rebrand. So we redesigned all assets of the company and relaunched within the first year,
Wow.
because we found we immediately got placed into a wellness category. And so that was something that we found so challenging, because I think that there's a lot of stigma. And again, I don't know that that is necessarily the same now, because in time this has changed a lot, and with media it has changed exponentially in the last like 5 or 6 years, for the way that people are comfortable speaking about, people like media outlets and therefore kind of the larger population speaking about cannabis, writing about cannabis, celebrities signaling that they use cannabis. Like all of that has taken a drastic change in those years. So there, it is significantly different, but there's still this impression, I think, again, at the time, specifically for women, where one, if you're designing products, if you're a female founded brand, therefore you're a brand for women. And that was something that we did not adhere to. We are a design brand and we have a lot of variation of products that you should be, depending on how you see yourself, find yourself in any one or multiple of our products. It's something that we have tried very hard to keep kind of gender out of our brand, and make sure, although we are women, I think that men don't get that impression. Men are allowed to design brands that can be for women or
Mm-hmm.
men or whatever. But if a woman is designing something, it kind of automatically becomes like, this is for women. And so that was something that we wanted to change the tone of the brand so that that came across, so that men could also find themselves in the brand. And then the second piece was that the wellness space. So we were a little bit of a cleaner brand when we launched, aesthetically, and we got put in this category of like wellness, like you, which we felt was another stigma for women to hold, where now you can, it's cool if you smoke weed, but only if you're doing it for like your period or your
Medicinal.
headache. Yeah, exactly. But not if you also want to have the same, like you just want to have like the giggles, then that's not something that we're advocating for. Like that's kind of what the general population, and we also didn't want that. We're very, very like, our entire ethos is choice. Like we just want to create possibility for the people who are using our products to choose how they access whatever modality or whatever purpose that they're using it for. So we did not want to be pigeonholed into those spaces. So we ended up rebranding, and that was the first challenge that we really faced. And that's why that's how we kind of overcame it, was by, of course, with branding. Like, you cannot understate how important branding is, how important everything from the colors that you're using in your brand, the statement of the logo, the tone of every aspect of your, copy, to your visual language, and what that says about the brand. So we really quickly adapted all of that to make sure that, what we thought was coming across clearly wasn't, and we needed to pivot. So,
which is incredible that you adapted so quickly within just the first year, that you all were doing a lot of social listening and being agile to make those adjustments so that you could say, oh, wait, hold on.
yeah,
We're going to mix this up a little
Yeah.
bit, because that's not what we were going for. So
Yeah.
now
And it could have been a beautiful brand. It just
Totally.
wasn't what we wanted. So that was like, it wasn't what we wanted this brand to address.
And that's touching on a really good point, as far as there's not necessarily a right way of having a brand. It's just more so aligning the brand with how you want to build it.
Yeah.
When you're investing in building a brand, it's a big commitment.
Yeah. And I think these types of brands, when you're making something so personal, you are making every single, we're a bootstrap business. We don't have a board of directors. We don't have, all of these other voices that are input. We are the voice of every single aspect of this brand. I think it has to be hyper personal to you. And if you don't authentically see yourself in every aspect of the brand, I think that becomes really problematic in your ability to continue to champion that brand forward and create really authentic partnerships. Like, when you talk about partnerships, like, there's a reason that those work, because they come from my background, and they come from relationships, and they come from meaningful connections of our ethos, and not a forced kind of placement of where we probably would have been if we had to play in the wellness space for too long.
Absolutely. And that brings me to my next question, because I absolutely love what you've been doing from a brand strategy perspective on partnerships. And you just touched upon that they are based off of your relationships and your past experience. So could you give us an inside look of how your brand approaches partnerships? Because I know that a lot of emerging brand founders listen to this podcast. Partnerships is something that's on their radar, but they're not quite sure what that could look like, or what that really does look like. Can you give us a little inside peek of how you approach it?
Yeah, for sure. There's when you're starting any brand from the ground up, again, I think there's different levels of this, and there's different advice that different people should take, because we are a bootstrap business. So we do not have excessive marketing budgets. We don't have kind of a network of that. Potentially you have opportunity in if you have the right investors with a board that can connect you to spaces or opportunities or these kinds of things. So, and none of it is right or wrong, just like there's access points that I would maybe push someone into if there was different opportunities, because sometimes there's just as many challenges with having too much money, in a way, because you can also just throw it in a million different directions and dilute your brand, or throw it in the wrong place, or oversaturate yourself, or these different pieces. So it's not like that's a surefire win either way. But basically, our partnerships are really started from, I was have had a long background in kind of that brand and music space for a long time. So I was leading talent buying at Vice for a long time, and then overseeing all of their experiential marketing and brand partnerships, and then moved on to oversee the development of brand partnerships and experiential marketing for like building out that category for attention media. And so it was kind of a space that I was able to be in for a long, long time. So I was doing that for many, many years. And in that have developed a lot of relationships in and like rooted care for music and for really thoughtful, interesting brands and artists that are like artists as in brands or artists as in creatives of kind of any method who are doing things that are really interesting, because that's where I started, was especially at Vice, where you're trying to find, in a way, like not necessarily the next thing, but really making sure that the lineups we were developing were really curated. No one else is getting these people. They're the next people to kind of come up. And it's just this really ingrained care and interest. So there's a lot of stuff that I think we've had an opportunity to develop relationships with people and artists that now also have become at a level like over the years, which is like a side note asterisk of the importance of growing laterally. I think there's definitely a lot of people who talk about that, of like networking laterally, where you obviously need to recognize and understand that everybody, you should be creating really meaningful and mutually beneficial relationships with people below you at the same level as you, as well as aspire to the people and brands above you, because you don't want to be the person who's just like clamoring for people as soon as they get to be something. Like you really do want to make sure that you're like a genuine connector that's able to have a really meaningful back and forth with individuals and brands and that kind of stuff from the get-go, because there's a lot of people who are doing really beautiful things that you can see right off the bat, like you're going to do something beautiful, and I'm eager to support in any way I can, even if it doesn't mean some, you know, there's not a connection to me right off the bat or something like that. So a lot of those relationships just are organic things that grow over time. And the partnerships that we work for, like we still have the dream list that everyone has, like, you know, we still go to bed dreaming about a partnership with Rihanna, but we create, I think, through originally those networks, and now through a bit of a proof case where you can show the value that you've added to the original brands. And I think that's it, is like knowing you shouldn't be everywhere, making sure that you have a clear understanding of why you're partnering. I think we've been in this like collab era where you're collabing over people are just collabing like over and over and over and over. And I just think that that can be really detrimental. So making sure that there's a reason that you're collabing with these people and it makes sense for your brand story.
Totally. I absolutely agree. And I think that you've done a great job with making it feel intentional and on purpose with your partnerships. Hi.
I'm so sorry.
No, don't worry. I'll fix it. I'll make a note.
Okay. Okay, sorry.
No, don't be sorry.
No.
No, that was,
Part of
you
the
were on
day.
a roll. No, it was so good. As far as I'll figure it out. Don't worry. As far as brand strategy and how you've been building the brand, what is next? What is the next thing that you're really focusing on? The way that what you've learned, what you're leveraging? I would love to hear a little sneak peek.
Yeah, I mean, there's so many things that we're working on now. We definitely have a couple more partnerships coming out in Q1, Q2 next year. And then but we also, the biggest thing that we're working on is we've created some meaningful partnerships that will support creating that reach retail wise. So we have, I think there's a lot of challenges in cannabis in advertising and in that channel that really helps you grow kind of in the same way. The access tools that normal businesses have, cannabis brands still have. We don't even sell anything that's illegal, but we still basically get lumped into those high risk categories, and so we have a lot of this issues like with anything like Meta or Google or anything like that. So we were faced with challenges that a lot of companies aren't. So our biggest thing is we have developed some really meaningful relationships in retail that are strategic partnerships in larger kind of international scope, so that we can continue to grow the brand in a presence that doesn't rely our social channel as the entire scope of meeting the brand, knowing the brand, and being able to access how you meet the new products or where you're accessing your point to purchase.
Right.
So that's something that is our largest Q4 and going into 2024 is something that we're really excited about. So that's where we have a couple of large partnerships coming up where we can, again, in that retail arm where we'll be able to meet customers by way of retailers that they already know and love in a really meaningful way. That, again, because we do get kind of like our kicked out at the news at times on social platforms. So that's something that is hopefully, again, we can talk in 6 and we'll hopefully have an update that's gonna be like a meaningful traction there.
I really, what stuck with me when we did our panel at New York Now is how you have found different paths to build relationships with customers and building that community. You mentioned TYB, and it sounds like you've also really leveraged, like you said, retail strategic partners to meet with customers and not just relying on social, which I think, regardless of the restrictions around someone's industry, I think that's a really important piece of advice of not just relying on social. That social is one channel, but it's not the only channel. So honestly, from what I hear also is that the fact that you couldn't just lean on social, you had to think outside the box, but it actually is building this really robust marketing strategy and brand strategy that you can leverage exponentially because you haven't just relied on one thing. You're always thinking of different paths. And that's something I really appreciate about what you're doing and what you're building, is that you have many different paths to make it happen.
Yes, true. Silver lining.
Yeah, silver lining there. So with that said, I could talk to you forever, but I know you got to go. You got lots of meetings, making shit happen. Where can people shop your products?
So our website, sackville.co. And then we actually just recently also launched on Amazon, which we're excited about.
Oh, interesting.
That's obviously 1 to 2 day shipping for Prime members and free shipping. It is a very interesting category on Amazon. So we're new in that space, but there's a lot of growth there too. So yeah, go, like, who's not wilding out on Amazon. So find us on Amazon. And then, we're at a lot of beautiful boutiques all over North America and in a bunch of other countries. Our service list is online, but we have created a really beautiful curated list of amazing stores that also carry other stylized, beautiful things. And we're basically our whole line at Urban Outfitters as well, in store and online.
Amazing. Well, thank you so much for coming on. You were incredible. Thank you for sharing your insights and your time, your strategy, and just thank you for being you. I really appreciate this.
Thank you for having me. I'm sorry about these internet woes.
No worries.
But hit me you. If you need
Sounds
me to
good.
re-soundbite.
I love it. We got it. Thank you everyone for
Okay,
listening, and I'll see you
thank
on the next
you.
episode.